Good morning and welcome to America's Home Cooking. Today I am going to explain something to you because I tried something and I want you to understand. We're going to talk about implosions and why they happen. Okay, what happens is that we have leavenings. We have egg whites. If you beat them, you beat air into them. You can see the same thing happens with whipped cream when you go to whip it. You're beating air into it, which gives it that lift that you're looking for. Baking powder, baking soda, yeast is the same thing, so I'll explain yeast and then I'll work through. Yeast, if you let your bread over rise, it'll go all the way up and then it implodes, it collapses. It's gone. There's nothing you can do with it. And the reason that happens with yeast is because it's eaten all the food there is and there's nothing left, so they start dying and they implode. All right? Now, when you use baking powder and baking soda, if you've ever baked a recipe and you notice that it's sort of dented into the middle, this is called an implosion. It's because you have too much air and not enough batter to hold it. Okay? I tried an experiment because I wanted you to see what can go wrong when you're doing muffins if you overmix them or if you add too much leavening. The leavenings are usually your baking powders and baking sodas, and this is what they call them, all right? Now, let me get one of them out so I can show you exactly what happens with an implosion. Okay, let's see if I can get this one out. Let's hope you can see what I'm trying to show you. You see that dent in there? Now, if you hold it up like that and you tilt it, you see that dent? That's called an implosion. Do you know why? Because there was too much leavening in the recipe. The muffins were coming up and then they ran out of the middle. They didn't have enough dough to hold, so it implodes in. And this is the failure of muffins, is there's too much leavening in it, which is your baking soda or baking powder or air or something, and it collapses because the dough can't hold it. There's more air than dough. So if you're trying to create a recipe and this happens, it implodes because you have too much leavening in it. Now, when you're making your own baking powder, you do not need to use the baking soda in the recipes. Just wipe it out, because then if you try with your baking powder that you've made yourself, you'll notice that they all implode. I didn't know this when I was, hold on a minute. So this is why I'm eliminating the baking, when it has baking powder and baking soda in it. Now, the baking powder that you buy in the store has aluminum in it, and aluminum is a retarder because baking soda has cream of tartar, cornstarch, and baking soda, and that's the combination. You make those three ingredients actually make plain baking powder. They add the aluminum in because they want to retard the baking soda until heat hits it. Now, baking soda, if you notice, when you add it in and you add liquids, it starts rising right away because that's the reaction. Liquid to baking soda is going to cause the explosions of coming up. But if they want a higher lift, they add the baking powder to get that extra lift so it's lighter. But if you use your own, you have to wipe the baking soda out or you'll have implosions on everything you make. And then you think that I can't do this, but you can do it. And remember, they know aluminum stores in the body. They don't know what it does to the body, but it's a mineral. Now, trace minerals our body can handle, but aluminum, we're not supposed to. It does give us problems. So if you can eliminate the aluminum, you'd be better off. It's taken me years to be able to manipulate and maneuver around. I did a lot of experiments trying to just use the homemade baking powder and baking soda, and I had a lot of implosions. It ran into the oven. I just had a mess for a while, but I realized, I said, you know, I'm just going to take the baking soda out of the recipes and use my homemade my homemade baking powder, and I noticed everything worked really well. So if you wish to make your own baking powder, remember that you're going to have to remove the baking soda in the recipe because you're going to have the baking soda already in the baking powder, because that's what it is. When it's actually cornstarch, cream of tartar, and baking soda equals baking powder. All right, so listen, I hope this helps you to understand. So if you're making recipes and they implode, realize it's too much leavening and you've got to cut back on your leavening. I don't know which one you would cut back on if you're creating a recipe, but this is a key to help you if you want to try experimenting, they say, in the kitchen. So take care and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.